Sign language. It's not just a saying, it's a way of life. It impacts many people every day and gives people a way to show their perspective. For years and years, the deaf population was struggling. But that all changed after one man with a dream to teach the deaf thought of a simple solution. Thomas Gallaudet's invention of American Sign Language in 1814 provided a way for people to communicate with those that are hard of hearing. The eventual spread and widespread adoption of American Sign Language has led to increased understanding of how to maximize opportunities for deaf people across the country.
Abbé de Leppé was a French Catholic priest and started teaching young students, which later led to his lifelong decision to serve and educate the deaf population of France. Abbé de Leppé added hand signals to replace the sound of the alphabet and already existing in Common Sign Language. In 1814, Dr. Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, who was a minister from Hartford, Connecticut, moved next door to Mason Fitch Cogswell. Dr. Cogswell was one of the best-known surgeons in the country at the time. He had a daughter named Alice Cogswell, who had lost her hearing at the age of 2 as a result of meningitis. Dr. Gallaudet recognized the need for the Cogswell family to be able to communicate with Alice and attempted to develop a way to communicate using hand signals and drawing in dirt. Alice and Dr. Gallaudet quickly developed a strong relationship as she now had someone she could communicate with. Gallaudet taught the Cogswell family this method of communication, allowing the family to understand each other for the first time. Gallaudet quickly recognized the power of this new style of communicating by hand and wanted to find a way to spread it to others, but he first needed to learn more about how others were communicating with people who were deaf and hard of hearing.
Gallaudet communicated the benefits of this method to his community, and after gaining enough money and support, he traveled to Europe to learn more about how they communicated to people who are deaf and hard of hearing. Gallaudet's travels first took him to visit the Brainwoods Academy for the Deaf and Dumb. The Brainwoods, however, were only willing to share their methods if Gallaudet would pay them for each of his students that he taught. Thomas Gallaudet was not also very keen to learn their methods because they only relied on oral teachings and gestures. Dr. Gallaudet studied the educators' methods of teaching and took private lessons with Laurent Clerc, who is said to be one of the best educated teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing in Europe. After Dr. Gallaudet was finished studying the teacher's methods, he asked Laurent Clerc to accompany him on his way back to America. He believed that the professor would help him go far in the deaf teaching community. Upon his return in 1817, Thomas Gallaudet established the American School for the Deaf in Hartford, Connecticut. He utilized what he had learned in Europe to develop a method of instruction called the Signed English, which was an attempt to represent the structure of the visual modality of English. As Eric Draskow, part of the Department of Educational Studies of North Carolina College, said in his article titled American Sign Language, this early form of Signed English relied on the Signed French because early American instruction was borrowed from the French model. The Hartford community swiftly recognized the impact of Gallaudet and Clerc's work, and the school was growing quickly. Students started bringing signs that they had learned from their home, and the school started to adapt to the new hand signals. Although Dr. Gallaudet retired from the school in 1830 and Professor Clerc taught at the school until the 1850s, their work never really ended. By the time Clerc retired, 22 deaf schools, based on Gallaudet's teachings, had been established around America.
In 1851, Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet died. His youngest son, named Edward Minor Gallaudet, recognized the impact his father and Clerc had and wanted to build on his father's legacy in deaf education. To accomplish this, he ultimately decided to start a college for the deaf that provided a university degree to its students. Edward successfully presented his idea of deaf colleges to the Congress, and in 1864 they passed a legislation permitting the Columbia Institute, where college worked at the time, to immediately create the National Deaf-Mute College. By the time Laurent Clerc passed away in 1869, over 1,500 students had graduated from the Hartford School, and 30 state residential schools have been established according to the American School for the Deaf. The impact of Gallaudet's original work was rapidly increased. The college was renamed to Gallaudet College to honor Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet in 1893. It was again renamed to Gallaudet University in 1968. In 1960, William Stoke, a scholar and hearing professor in the university, published a composition that American Sign Language was a genuine language with a unique arrangement of words and grammar. In the past, the deaf community was treated differently in the world due to difficulties in communicating with others. The world didn't realize that they could help them face their hardships by teaching them a uniform system of communication. The world was able to understand how much they could contribute, allowing deaf and hard of hearing people the opportunity to contribute in the workforce, even now cemented in American law with the passage of American with Disabilities Act. On January 1, 2009, the American with Disabilities Act was passed. This landmark is a civil rights law that bans discrimination against people with disabilities in areas such as public life, school, transportation, jobs, and private and public spaces that are open to all the public. As of 4 years ago, the ASL in use today is a result of 195 years of deaf students and families passing down from one generation to the next. The language has been one of the most used and common languages in the United States. There are 3 different types of sign language across the country, which is all possible because of the work of Gallaudet. American Sign Language has evolved over time by the many people that helped shape it into what it is today. Because of the passionate civilians that put their life on hold to help those in need, the Mute population around the world can communicate with each other. The American School for the Deaf was established in Hartford, Connecticut in 1817. In 1851, Edward Gallaudet carried on his father's legacy at the school and continued to pursue his dream by teaching it. Thomas Gallaudet's invention of American Sign Language in 1814 provided a way for people to communicate with those that are hard of hearing. The eventual spread and widespread adoption of American Sign Language has led to increased understanding of how to maximize opportunities for deaf people across the country. Sign language is not just a saying, it's a way of life.
This game day feels different and quieter than most. The cheerleaders perform the national anthem with no music and no singing. Just hand gestures signaling that our flag was still there. The Bison communicate using ASL, or American Sign Language. You can't hear the snap count.
We just watch the football. The quarterback, he taps the center, and we just go when the football snaps.
So you watch the ball.
Watch the ball.
We have a great team and we have a great coach, and we always manage to find a way into the playoffs. Well, our goal is to win at least one set, or hopefully enough that we can actually upset them.
This is just a good challenge for us to really give it our best shot and just see how the results work out after the match.
So many years, we've set high standards for ourselves to keep it up and make it into NCAA every year.